This episode, the Handyman Pros discuss cheap versus quality. In this episode, the Handyman Pros have a discussion about purchasing cheap versus quality items for your homes, some things to think about. We're going to have a good conversation. Welcome to the Handyman Pros radio show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros radio show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Cheap versus Quality, and to help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, John. John, you've got a story. This whole thing came out of a job that you did, and you've got stories to tell.
Yeah, it was making me cheerful.
It was not, you liar. You're lying.
You know, and you're absolutely right. And I wanted to address this. Okay, I just replaced a whole bunch of faucets with new faucets that a customer wanted, and also some fans. It's kind of a delicate point, and it's one of the things that we, as consumers, you look around your house and you have to assess. Okay, here's the delicate part: is that you have to assess what kind of house you live in. If you live in $1 million house, and you're buying the cheapest type of products, that's probably not a good move. If you live in another type of a house that, and you may not be able to afford it, then you can buy less expensive products. So let me kind of explain. I looked, the faucets that I had put in were really cheap. Okay. And I look at the stratification of the different levels of the products. And just from, I look at, there's really bad stuff out there. And I think we all know,
we've all had those experiences. And by the way, folks, this has nothing to do with price either. It really has to do with quality of manufacture. I think that's really the clarification. It's just they tend to follow pricing lines, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and thanks for that, because there really is a quality thing here going on, okay? And that's really what I call, the lowest quality is kind of, I call it the lead type of quality, yeah. Lead, silver, then gold, then platinum. And I will tell you that just from, let's say, the faucets and some of the fixtures, you can buy faucets and fixtures that might be, $40, let's just say.
Yep.
I have gone into a real high-end place, okay? It was a big-time brand name. I'm not going to say it, but a showcase place. And you could buy faucets in there, for $1,200.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You turn them on, that water comes out, right? And I get the car analogy. I hate car analogies, okay? But in this case, people will argue, well, I've got a Volkswagen Rabbit, and it gets me from A to B. Why do I need a Bentley? Okay. It's just, it's one of the things that it's whatever's right for you. However, on the real low end, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I think that's where we kind of want to go with this. We want to point out some of the foibles to the really inexpensive products, right? And I want to use your faucet analogy. It's one of my favorites, right? So you go and you get a faucet, right? And John, and you know this, right? Did you have to buy supply lines for that faucet?
One of them I did.
Yeah, and this is the takeaway, right? The faucet itself, they sell these things strictly on price, right? So you buy the faucet, there's no supply lines. If you're going to buy a decent supply line, now you add another $10 or $12 times two, because there's two supply lines. So you add another, say, $20 to the cost of that faucet. Folks, they're the same price as if you're buying a Delta, a decent, I'm using a brand name, but I mean, if you're buying a decent brand name that has the supply lines attached to it, right? So it's not necessary. This is definitely about a value buy. That's what I think we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And we haven't touched on, and we're going to touch on, installation and some of the issues with installation, right?
Well, what I noticed, Larry, was this. there was a couple things, so let's get into it. the On the real cheap side of things, and when you buy real cheap stuff, you're going to start to you're inviting aggravation. You're inviting a short lifespan. The finish might not be as nice as some of the others. You don't have to go to that showcase store I was talking about to buy $1,200. You can buy some really nice stuff, but it's but it's worth stepping up at least to the silver, gold, stratosphere, if you will, to buy some really nice stuff. The fixtures in this case that we're talking about are going to last longer. They're going to install easier. They're going to have a better install. They're going to have better hardware, and some of the moving parts, like the pop-ups and things like that, are not going to be made of all plastic, where they're going to start to break right away. Okay, so that if you're looking at buying things, and just trying to throw out the caution here, is that you're kind of inviting some real issues that are going to come up with real low end stuff.
Yes.
I've noticed that there's no replacement parts sometimes for these low end stuff, nor is it worth even trying to replace the parts.
Right. Yep.
They're just gone. I've had faucets already that have the plastic pieces. Some of them have been engineered. It's like almost too clever by half, the way they've engineered some of the things, the way the pop-ups are. The way the tailpiece is coming out of the drain, it's plastic. You can't put any torque on it. If you don't slather it full of, plumber's putty or something, it's going to leak. I don't care how many seals they give you with these things. You just don't want to over tighten plastic, right? Or it's going to crack. So
at least the inexpensive plastics. Now, I mean, we're not belittling plastic, by the way, but there's folks, you know what I'm talking about. There's good quality, like really industrial quality plastics, and there's just
good point.
Punching out plastics that are you can tell by feel and by look. You can see it. You literally can see the difference. So we're talking about the bottom basement, and I want to make a comment. This is a comment. It's come to me just kind of in this side. I have a particular aversion towards people who flip homes. Okay, and I'm going to say this because this is a way you can tell if somebody's flipping a home. If you go in and you look at the fixtures, very few flippers use quality fixtures. Very, very, very few. And that's an indication of the quality of the home overall. And while that home might look good and they'll sell it to you, man, everything's brand new. Well, this is a case where brand new doesn't necessarily mean it's better. It just means it's new. Right, John? Do you agree with that?
This is almost like, let me jump in real quick, and that is almost like what we did. We did a show on, curb appeal.
Yep.
And almost when you get inside a home, and you're right about flipping, and I've been in a bunch of these homes, and people that are just not even flipping, that just want to get out, and they're being told to, you got to replace the faucets. Well, what are they going to do? They're not going to replace them with quality, right?
No, because
you can buy really cheap. You can buy really cheap ones that look kind of like good ones, but when you start to really investigate it, that really, to your point, that is kind of the representation of what the rest of the place is like.
Yeah, it bugs me because it's like we deal with it in the rental side all the time. Everybody says, "Oh, it's too expensive." It's like, no, but it's not what you pay; it's what you get. Right at the end of the day, it's not what you pay; it's what you get. And so and we've had this discussion many, many times. But these are issues. Trust me, when we have these conversations over and over again, it's because learning is a repeat skill. Right? You have to hear things sometimes many, many times. On average, it's more than 5 times before you actually start to learn and understand. And we see all of these issues that we're talking about. We see these on a weekly, if not more, basis. Sometimes it's daily, right? In this case, John replaced 6 faucets all in one day and had issues with every single faucet, right, John? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them, after they've been, used, they'll already start to show some wears and cracks on parts that shouldn't even have really no stress on them at all. i.e. the pop-up linkage.
Yes.
And that's it's just incredible because stuff isn't your home isn't like tightly engineered like a car is, where the parts are just going to fit. They're within tolerance, right? You always have to kind of improvise a little bit. And these things have to be a little bit flexible in some of the circumstances where they're used, and then they get abused too, by the kids and all kinds of things.
There you go, always blaming the kids.
Always blaming the kids.
It's not so
curtain
much
climbers.
Yeah, it's not.
So but it's those kind of things that you need to think about when you're doing this, because what you're doing to yourself is you're saving maybe $40 or $50 on a faucet, but you're, like I said earlier, you're kind of inviting some issues in not too far in the future.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Where you should get like 15 years out of a faucet if you want to, unless you're going to change it because the style's out. But when they start to chip and they're made of plastic and they're breaking and things like that, it's like, oh man, really? Here we go again. So what's cheap today is going to cost you more later
in the long run. Yeah.
And I think that's some of the things that we found. There's products products out there that there's no way around buying nice stuff. Okay, but then there's other products where you can buy nice stuff that's less expensive, and you have to do that because there's all kinds of different things in your home, your faucets, your light fixtures, your fans. I put up a fan that took me a lot longer to put up. It didn't come with instructions. It was, I don't know where they got it from, but it was.
You didn't get the telepathy thing on that one? They were beaming the thoughts into your brain.
Yeah, and unfortunately, couldn't find the product literature or anything on the internet. So
that's interesting in today's world.
I'll give it to the big box stores. Okay, I'll give it to the big box stores. If you do go back on their catalogs or online catalogs, they do have. Most of them have the service manuals or the instructions and the manuals and things like that online.
Yep.
In PDF format, which is fantastic these days. I mean, This is great. But, so you have to be real careful. Larry, we put in some really cheap, not cheap, but, kind of not middle of the road flooring. But we also found luxury vinyl plank flooring that was much better. That was even less money than some of that from the big box stores, right?
Yeah, and and again, it's not really about price. It's about value. It's about cost. What you get for what you buy. And yes, and we found it at less money than what was perceived as a better. We thought it was going to be a better product. It ended up not being a better product, and it was a bit of a shock in that particular sense. Because one thing that we haven't really talked about commodities, but a lot of people look at these items as commodities, right? So a faucet's a faucet, right? And largely that's true. They all do the same thing in theory, right? And so you ask yourself, well, why would you spend $1,200 on a faucet? And my particular answer on that one is, well, because that has to do with a style and or artwork look or a look that you're trying to achieve. And if you're trying to achieve that look, the quality levels, this has just been my experience through the years, and I put forth this kind of quality. You have the, as John says, the lead levels, right, which is the very bottom levels, and those things are always usually very, very inexpensive. Then you get it where you get the variation is between the silver and the platinum, right? So you have silver and you have platinum, and there's actually usually some real qualitative differences between silver and platinum, in my opinion. Now, again, this is kind of the way that I look at things. So there's a difference between silver and platinum, silver and gold, excuse me. And so there's a difference between the silver and the gold, and there's some quality differences. There's different makeups of materials that might be a bit more robust when you get to gold versus when you get to silver. There's also an associated higher higher price. And so then you kind of cater it to what you want to particularly need. But when you go from gold to platinum, my opinion is, because you'll find this if you actually go and look at the actual specs and you get into everything from the materials and this and that, you'll find out that there isn't this great big difference like there is between, say, silver and gold, or definitely between lead and gold. There's a massive difference between lead and gold, but there's not quite so much difference between the gold and the platinum. But what there is all style, all, as I call it, sometimes I call it artwork. So in other products, I've called it artwork. It's really the artistic endeavor, or in this case, if you're trying to do, you have a particular theme you're trying to do, and guess what? You're going to spend $1,200 on a faucet. And folks, if you want to spend $1,200 on a faucet, I really could care less. I mean, honestly,
yeah, right.
You know,
I mean, yeah, be my guest. But if you look at it like a chart with quality, quality on one side and money on the bottom, you really do at some point, the quality is going to shoot way up on the money, and then you're going to kind of get diminishing marginal returns on the quality. So I just wanted to bring, I want to bring these kind of things out, because it's not only that it's going to take you longer to install some of the cheap stuff.
Yeah, it
That's
sneaks
what I
up
found.
on you. It sneaks up on you. It's simple things that my experience has been, and John, you've had this similar experience. It's things like things don't thread together as easily as they should. Like literally, the threads aren't as good on the hardware, right? And you're sitting there, and of course, never fails. You're in a tight area, right? You can't get your hand up in there. You can't really get maneuver, and the freaking thing doesn't thread on there, and you're going like, man, you're about ready to throw it through the wall. You're so aggravated with the thing. And when you finally do get it on, then you're trying to figure out, is it actually on right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get down there, like my favorite on these faucets are, and then there's no supply line. You're like, you got to be kidding me. There's no supply line. Blah, 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 and so forth.
Exactly. And so on. Exactly, and I think you look at things like flooring. Don't forget, folks, you're going to be looking at that floor a lot. You're going to be walking on that floor a lot. So you really want to know what you're investing in. So a few more dollars really does pay off. And we always talk about planning out. Kind of get your strategy. And just don't walk down and just say, boy, that looks great, and just get it. You really need to investigate it. And that's what we try to bring through this show is some of that knowledge base. So that when you do go out and you're investigating, look at the stiffness of the floor, what's made up of, do some of the research on that.
And one other thing
for
too.
Instance,
one other thing, too, is just understand exactly what your usage is going to be, right? Because, for example, flooring. If you're just doing a floor in an off, out-of-the-way place of your home that doesn't get a whole lot of use, that becomes a very different thing than the main hallway of when you walk in, right? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't have a problem if you've got you're going to put a faucet in a bathroom that's the guest bathroom that gets used 3 times a year. Go ahead and put the super inexpensive stuff in there. But understand, usage is critical, right? And then moving parts and things like that. Like, I'm going to talk faucets or some of these other things. How many times do you turn that faucet on and off every single day, right? And it varies by room, right? So if you think about it from that standpoint, your kitchen faucet, and I don't have the actual statistics, but I'm just running through it in my head. Your kitchen faucet's probably number one. It probably gets turned on, I have no idea, but I bet it gets turned on more than any other faucet in your home. Do you agree with that, John?
No, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, I walk down there, before I know it, I got 100 times on that thing.
Yeah, and every single day, right? So your kitchen faucet gets used a lot. Your master bedroom is probably second, right? Because you're in there, right? And your laundry faucet, the one that's in your laundry room, gets turned, if you have one, gets turned on every so often, right? Qualitatively different numbers of motions for each unit. So you want, obviously, thinking about it that way, you want better quality where you actually use the thing the most, right? You want something that's at least silver or gold in those areas, because you want the good parts that it get, because that motion is what wears the daggum thing out, right? It gets turned on and off day to day. Whereas in the laundry, it gets turned on once a week or a couple times a week or whatever, right? Not as critical there. Does that make sense? Am I on track there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, dead on. And I will tell you that there's all kinds of places now to buy these products. Online, you can buy these things. I mean, it's incredible where people can find these things. And it's things that it's like, who makes this? Right?
It's available.
It's one of those things. And to highlight another thing is that light fixtures. I've put up some light fixtures that I don't know where they got them from, but they were brand new in the box. Probably came over from China somewhere. I don't know. Okay, and I don't know how they got them. But I looked at this, and folks, you're dealing with electricity now, and you look at some of the way it's wired, and it looks like it's proper, but it's just the way they've got it connected in there. I've had to fix it.
Yeah, you shouldn't be fixing things out of a box. That's,
no. It was really scary. Okay, it was like, man, it was bad, and I just couldn't.
Was that the one that you said the instructions said hold on to the black wire and step in a puddle?
Yeah, right.
Was that the one?
Yeah, make sure it's on.
Sorry,
but it's just one of those things where you really have to, boy, I hate to say, you just got to use your head on some of this stuff, because it may look good, it may look like you look at this. Okay, let me give you an example. You put these two products side by side, and they both look the same. One's kind of a knockoff, right? You used to buy those knockoff Rolex watches, right?
Yeah. And they look identical, right?
They look identical. So I won't go through that story, but you put these two light fixtures together, and they look the same, but they are not the same.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's a lot more to that inside, okay, than just the looks. So, that you just don't want to do that to yourself, especially on the, electricity side of things, because the next thing you got bulbs that are flashing in this thing, and they're, what's going on here? The connections aren't tight. The sockets are awful that you've got light bulbs screwed into. It's all that. And,
it's all that and more, John. It's all
that.
Yeah,
really. And what'd you do? You saved yourself $50. It's not worth it. So I bring this show out or the idea of the show out because I just went through a bunch of this, and this is probably now maybe the fourth or fifth place that I've experienced this. So,
John, you know what I call that?
What do you call that, Larry?
Job security.
Yeah, job security.
Because you'll be back to fix it in the not too distant future.
And I just don't want to have the leaks or, anything worse happen.
Well, understood, but it is what it is, right? But that's just, I think that's our cautionary tale. It's like anything. We talk about this all the time on this show. Life is about choices, right? And you have, an infinite number of products to buy for your home. It is astounding, the number of products. It always amazes me. And you need to have some bit of education today, folks. One of my pet peeves, Johnny, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. If you have a smartphone, you have the biggest library in the whole wide world standing there in your hands. Use it. Look it up. Google it. Mm-hmm. If you can't find it, if you're looking at something and you can't find it out there, I would pass. That's my opinion. If you can't find it somewhere online, pass. If you can't find a manual or something on it, pass. And stuff like that exists. Speaking of faucets, this is kind of a funny thing. I did a faucet repair job for somebody. The guy goes, "Oh, can you fix this faucet?" I look at it. I couldn't even find a brand name on it. And this was a house built in the 90s. He goes, "Well, everybody's home in the whole neighborhood is made with these things." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I took one of them off. They were all matching. I took it off, and I'm like, these are no name. Like, what did this builder get a deal on these deals? Like, there was no identifying marks. And to your point, John, no repairing it at all. Not even a chance. Couldn't get the seals. Nothing. Couldn't do anything with it. I said, here's your deal. Don't know who this is. Can't find a maker's mark on it anywhere. Not anywhere could I find anything that said what it was. And I said, your options are basically to replace this. Because I'm not going to warranty anything I do to this thing because I don't know anything about it. And end of story. That was the option. So
yep. And everybody's got their opinion about their pet brands that they love, But there is a brand out there of faucets that I was fixing a faucet, like repairing some faucets one time, and I had to go get some parts for it. And I went down to this plumbing supply place that I went into, and there's some plumbers sitting, and it was lunchtime, right? And they're at the counter, they're waiting to get their parts, and they looked at it and they just started laughing. And they mentioned the name, they were dead on, okay, of this faucet. And they were like, man, those things are toys.
Yeah.
And I said, you're right. This is not mine. Hey, this is just for a friend. No, I'm just kidding. But it was for somebody else. And I made a suggestion. Hey, why don't I just change out these faucets, because it's going to be a whole lot cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And to that point, just as part of that process, you bring up another point. Folks, don't hesitate. You can call down to the local, say a plumbing, like we're talking plumbing, but you can call the electrical supply place, right? You can call any of these special. We've talked about specialty retailers on this show before, and all those specialty retailers are a realistic source of information. And you can go on their websites, and if you type in, what do you think of XYZ product, or if you call them on the phone, the guy behind the counter, he'll tell you. Yeah, he goes, man. I've got 50 guys that come in here professionally, and they're constantly bringing in that one. Yeah, you could just buy yourself this part right now in advance, because it's going to go bad, and you'll get that kind of information. So anyway, we digress.
That's a great tip, because it's like anything else. If you go to an automotive repair garage, right? And these guys are going to see
one set of experiences, right?
You're going to see the same cars coming in over and over and over again with the same type of problems, and they're going to be, what, dude, stay away from that, man. Those things are nothing but trouble.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. So anyway, Johnny.
Yes.
It is that time. It is time,
Larry,
for you to be abducted. It's time for you to be abducted once again by a spaceship.
And carried away.
They stopped abducting you for a reason. I've heard.
They did.
And why is that? Because you're forever taking their ships apart, John. That's what they told me. That's what they told me.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a HIPAA violation. Okay. So.
And with that, folks, once again, it's time to bid you adieu here at the Handyman Pros Radio Show. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, bad jokes included, please send us an email, questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. Go to our website and join our newsletter subscription, and you can send us some things there as well. That's at handymanprosradioshow.com. Also, join our Facebook group at Handyman Pros, and follow us on Twitter at Handyman Radio. Johnny, I'm in game show host voice. What do you think of that? Something different. Something different. All right, folks.
Yeah, I'll take Charlie to block.
That's right. Jeez. Oh my God, we're old. Anyway, with that, folks,
that's old.
That's an old one. With that, folks, we want to thank you for listening. We will see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.